Hi there. Welcome to this talk on the 8 limbs of yoga. I presented this at the Kula Yoga Festival in 2025, which took place in New Hampshire. In this talk, we discuss the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the 8 limbs of yoga, which come from them, and how they apply to us in our modern day, in our modern life. And knowing that these 8 limbs of yoga have survived the test of time, that they're still applicable to us today. And they introduce to us not just concepts, but actual genuine practices that can help us to relieve stress, to live better lives, to live a higher quality life, to connect with others better, and to, of course, connect with ourselves in a way that is deep and meaningful. So without further ado, I'll leave you to the recording. How's my voice? Am I too loud? Too quiet? Perfect. Just perfect? It's good to be perfect. Welcome. My name's Jack. I know I've met some of you, and some of you I haven't met yet this weekend. We're going to be discussing the 8 limbs of yoga. They come from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And when we begin a study or any kind of discussion on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, we often chant the Vande Gurunam, which is the invocation of or praise of the teacher. And so I will chant that. Now, if you're kind of familiar with the cadence, you're welcome to enjoy, or you could just drop into some meditation. Vande Gurunam Charanaravindeya Sandashtasva Masukha Vabode Nishreyase Jangalikayamani Samsahara Hala Halamu Hashantai Abahu Parushakaram Shankachakrasidarinam Sahasra Shresam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim. Well, welcome. So the teacher is not always a person. Sometimes it's a person. Sometimes it's a book. Sometimes it's not a book. The teacher is what helps us to move from this position here to this position, whatever that position is. And so the 8 limbs of yoga, well, actually, who here has heard of the 8 limbs of yoga? You can just, cool. Who here is like a little familiar with them? Maybe they read the book once or heard about them in yoga teacher training or something. And then who here is a master? Okay. None of us are really masters, right? But there is a way to become master, right? Master being sometimes defined as, and this is my definition that I like to use, is that you understand the basics at such a fundamental level that they become normal. You don't even think about them anymore. So we've mastered many things in life. Some of the things we've mastered we're kind of upset about, and we're trying to fix them. But a lot of things we've mastered are really good for us. You know, if you've ever gone on any kind of healing journey, or you've changed a habit about your life, you've mastered something because you made it your norm. You made it something that's not even a thought anymore. It's second nature. It's just your nature. All right. And so as we move through these 8 limbs, I want you to think about what you have already mastered here and maybe what you're moving towards, right? And so there's a lot of information in the 8 limbs of yoga, and we're going to get into it very soon here, but don't feel overwhelmed especially if you're kind of newer to them. Just grab a hold of what you need. That's actually asteya. We're going to get to it, but it's non-stealing. Non-stealing also means taking. So if you don't take, then you'll never have anything. But if you take too much, then you'll be overwhelmed. So finding the balance is how you're going to navigate any of this information. Because we've just come through an entire weekend of yoga, and maybe you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Maybe there's something you want to integrate about this experience. And so in this structure of the 8 limbs of yoga, you'll be able to do so. So the 8 limbs of yoga come from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And he's a sage that is in mythology, maybe is a real person, might have been a group of people that came together to write down what these sutras were. Before they were written down, they were spoken orally. And so we might say they're about 5,000 years old, but it's really hard to know for sure. And it also comes from India. They don't have record keeping in any kind of time system that we understand. So they could be very, very old. They could just be 5,000 years old. And he wrote them down as a system, not to follow to a T like a technique, but as a understanding that when you do these things happen. And the 8 limbs of yoga are one of the systems inside where he explains that this is the right way to live life if you are on this path of self-realization, of understanding maybe the deeper nature of what we're experiencing, but also of just living a healthy life that's not creating attachments and issues in life where you kind of like, make too many waves, you start to entangle yourself with all those things that those waves interact with. So it's a way to free yourself through health and wellness, through well-being, through the mind, through the physical body. And the 8 limbs of yoga start with the external observations. These things that are, we think of them initially as external. This is called the yamas. And the first yama, there's 5 yamas. The first one is ahimsa, which translates to non-harm. And we use the Sanskrit, like you're gonna understand all these concepts through English. We're gonna use the Sanskrit, once I explain it to you, we use Sanskrit because I want you to create a new concept inside your mind, especially if you're not familiar with them, because it gives you perspective. So ahimsa being non-harm, also non-violence, is the very beginning. He says this is the foundation. Because we all create a little bit of harm in existence. Just walking over here, I stepped on grass, right? I did a little bit of harm to the grass. Is the grass going to die? No. But I did do a little harm to it. It would have preferred I not step on it, right? And that happens all the time. We are living. We're a part of this world. We forget that we're a part of this world. So you're not going to eliminate harm, but you're going to practice non-harm. Right? Because you're not going to go out there and just rip up the grass just because you're mad at it or something, right? And you might mow it, but if you mow it, right, you're going to mow it in a way that keeps it healthy and strong and keeping it that greenness to it, and it'll actually be happy for it. Just like we're happy when we get a haircut or shave our beard. We don't want all that craziness going on. We want it to be tame, right? So we do a little harm, but we create something better from that. We can literally talk about non-harm probably the whole time, right? Like it's really easy to get into it because it's really fundamental. When we look at Hindu philosophy in general, what comes first and what comes last are the most important parts of it because we have to begin somewhere, right? Like we began this yoga festival somewhere, and we're coming to the end of this yoga festival, but we're also coming to the end of any other philosophy. And what happens at the end? They connect with one another. You're coming full circle into your experience, and you're going to create a story from all of that. And so those two things that connect create this cycle. And in Hindu philosophy and just general, if you've ever been to India, everything is circular over there. And so it kind of feels like chaos. There's no linear line. We think in a more of a linear line here in America. So just kind of keep that in mind a little bit. So we'll move on from ahimsa, because the next one is astaya. Satya. It's satya, which is truthfulness, okay? Or honesty, sincerity, wonderful words to connect to it. I like truthfulness as the English translation because it's not the truth. No one's going to tell you the truth. If anyone tells you the truth, they're probably creating a cult or they're trying to sell you something. So just be a little wary of anyone who has the truth. But truthfulness is this ability or attempt to be as truthful as possible. Who here has lied to themselves about something in their life and caught it, right? Yeah, there's a few of us out there, probably everyone. But when we catch it, when we realize we're lying to ourselves, that's when we actually make a change. Right? Like you can lie to yourself your entire life about something, and then all of a sudden you realize it, and you go, oh, I've been lying to myself about that. Maybe I'm not as good at this, at that, or maybe I have treated people this way, whatever it could be. When you realize that, you become empowered. So that's why the truth is very empowering. It's very strong. We like not just in any yoga, but like in general, the philosophy of truth is like a sword. It's sharp. Once you realize it, it's like the sword cuts through. None of the bullshit or the darkness or whatever it is that's in your way survives the sword. You understand. It's very keen. And once you have that understanding, you move forward. But there are times to lie. Can you think of a time to lie? Yeah. What if you're protecting someone too? Right. Yeah. There's times to lie. Not a lot, but there are times to lie. Why would you lie? Ahimsa, non-harm. You don't want to harm someone. You don't want to harm something. If your words are going to cause harm, why say them? Or, So in the hierarchy of things here, that's why ahimsa comes first. We should weigh ahimsa a little bit more than satya. But not a lot comes before satya because it's only ahimsa. So truthfulness is very important. We want to be truthful with ourselves. Now astaya. Now it's astaya. We're still on the yamas here. This is the third yama. Astaya is non-stealing, non-taking. We steal a lot of things in life. We don't think about it because we think about stealing as like, I take this object from you, now it's mine because I took it by force, right? It's the only way to take something is take it by force or without them knowing, but you took it, you physically took it. All right, that's stealing, we all know that. But we also steal things like attention and time. We steal space. But it's not no stealing, right? It's not no taking. We're a part of this world. We're going to take up space. We're going to take people's attention. We're going to consume food. And we want entertainment. Like all these things we take. We're taking, right? You're taking a workshop. You've taken a yoga festival. But why are you taking it, right? That's actually way more important than the taking part. Why are you taking it? And then are you taking too much, right? I love the yoga festivals. I go to many of them. And you go there and you consume the information, the wisdom, the knowledge, you take the classes, you get all this stuff, all of it. But what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to integrate it, or are you just going to enjoy the weekend and then you go back to your daily life, nothing changes? No, I implore you, integrate something, take something from this experience, right? But whatever doesn't serve you, you let that go. You don't need to hold on to everything. Some of the stuff, is extra. It's going to consume the mind, or maybe it's over your head, or maybe you've already practiced it, right? You don't need it. You can leave that behind. You take what you need, integrate it, make it a part of who you are through whatever practice that might be. And it's usually some form of solitary time, meditation, journaling. Could be just talking with a good friend. You might be here with a friend already, and you can spend time discussing it, right? We naturally do this already, but there's active participation in it when you start to journal or you meditate on it. Because it's really easy to take. That's why we have the practice of non-taking. Taking is the easy part. You walk out into the world, there's stuff there, you just take it. You start talking in a group of friends, and if you have the gift of gab, right, you just talk, but you never ask a question. You never ask your quiet friend, something to bring in. Maybe they want 10% of the time, right? And they're okay with you taking 90% of the time. But understanding, like, it's not always completely equal. We're not just at this flat level. Understand that sometimes it's time to take, sometimes it's time to give, sometimes it's time to leave behind. Moving on from astaya, we have brahmacharya. Now, have you heard of brahmacharya before, maybe in your YTT? A lot of times this was translated as celibacy or celibacy. And for all of us, we know what celibacy is, right? Okay. Well, I looked it up. I wanted to know. I had to know the etymology of this. So I reached out to a friend of mine who's a super deep philosopher. He's a recovering theosophist and all this stuff. And he's got this book that goes way back into the English language. I mean, this book is big. It's like, it's a ridiculous book. And I said, hey, can you just take a picture of this word for me? I need to know what this is. So I look at celibacy, and it originated as vow, not the vow is vow, like I vow this, right? I vow not to do this. I vow this, vow that, blah. And vow is a different word than celibacy to us today. It originated to what we know it as today because it was really only used for marriage, right? And we know traditionally in marriage, you would vow to be celibate for that person, right? That marriage. And then we are in our modern day and we've changed that experience. We've reevaluated it as a culture and said, well, maybe that's not exactly what we want anymore. And so this word is like, it just kind of lingers there, but because it was only used for one thing, it became known as that one thing. That's how English works. It's how a living language works, which is why we move to the Sanskrit. Because, well, it's spoken, it's usually used as a language of philosophy. And so what brahmacharya means in a more modern sense of translation is conservation of energy. It means also to walk with Brahma. Brahma being the creator or like the soul, is to be at peace with what is and not being so involved in every single thing. You need to conserve your energy. And if anyone is older than maybe a young child, you understand that we start to have to pick and choose where to put our energy as we grow older. And we're really powerful with our energy, but we get tired if we just are in everything, right? So we pick and choose our hobbies, our friends, where we put our time, whether we're going to go to school or what we're going to work on, the things that we invest our time in, like this yoga festival. We become conservative with our energy so that we can have more of the things that we value in life, and so that we can do more of those things that we want to do in life. And another thing about the vow thing, and why the original yogis who brought yoga over here to teach us, when they translated it, they saw it as brahmacharya being the vow to their teacher, that they would not be with this teacher and with this teacher and this teacher and this teacher and this path and this lineage and over here. That's chaos, right? Like, how are you going to get anywhere if you never settle on something, right? If you go to school, like college or something, you pick a school and you just go to that one. Maybe you change, but you don't go to 3 different schools at the same time. You would never get anything done, right? And you'll be confused. Where it goes, where, this, that. So that's brahmacharya. So maybe you knew that, maybe you didn't, but it's been a little misconstrued over the last several decades, generations. I just like to kind of correct that one. Aparigraha is the last of the yamas. These are very external to us, right? They're how we relate to the world around us. And aparigraha is like non-hoarding or non-coveting, right? So it kind of goes with it kind of relates with that astaya, right? Non-stealing, where you don't just take and hold on to everything, right? If you hold on to everything, your arms are full, your cup is full, you'll never be able to understand what's going on. There is a British, scholar who, when they first landed in Japan, right? He went to one of the Zen masters, and maybe you've heard this, and he says, teach me, everything that you know. He wanted to know. He wanted to consume the knowledge and put it in a book, right? Get his name known in England. And so the Zen master says, sure, I'll teach you. Would you like a cup of tea? So, of course, he says, yes, I love tea. He's British, he loves tea. And so he goes over and he starts pouring the cup of tea, right? But he keeps pouring it. And it starts to overflow, and it spills everywhere. And the British man goes, by God, man, the tea is full. The cup is full. And he says, and that's why I can't teach you, because your cup is full. If your cup is full, then your cup is full. What are you trying to consume more of? Okay? So if you want something more, you must have an empty cup. You must understand space. And so if you're already busy with everything, then how are you going to create something new? If you want to heal from something that's traumatizing you or shaping your life that you don't like, how are you going to heal from that if your entire identity is assigned to it? You need to stop speaking as if it is and speak as if it were, right? Create the emptiness so you can move into some other level of fullness, whatever that might be. That's a parigraha. And so that's a lot for the first yamas. The yamas are very external looking, but you can see how they move inward, right? So ahimsa being non-harm, we think initially external to us, but our thoughts are an internal process, and our thoughts create a lot of harm, right? And we lie to ourselves, not just to people. Maybe you're really good at not lying to people, but you maybe haven't caught yourself with all the lies to yourself. Maybe you're stealing from your future for your pleasure today. That's really common nowadays. We don't think about our future. We just live for this moment. And it's a little cliche. I'm here in the now. But the now also implies that there is a continuation when we are working towards something. If you truly lived in the now, you would probably be homeless, just like the yogis in India who do live in the now. And their culture takes care of them so that they can experience that and they can bring these knowledge, this philosophy, this understanding of what it is to be human to us. But I'm assuming we all here probably have some kind of job. We live in a nice place, maybe a house or an apartment. We work to create something of our life. We create this story. And so because of that, we must be a part of this world, right? So don't just live in the now. Come to the now. Be in the now. But understand that there's these past and future experiences we want. So don't steal from your future self, right? Don't take from your future stuff. All right. Niyamas. Niyamas are, we're turning inwards. We're turning towards ourselves with the niyamas. These are internal observations. The first niyama is saucha. Saucha translates to like cleanliness or purification. Now, it's not purity. I want to make that distinction here. Because, again, we're alive. We're living in this world. Just walking over that grass I did earlier, right? My feet got a little dirty. Not a whole lot, but a little, right? Because there's dirt underneath grass, right? We're going to have these impurities. We're going to move through life. We're going to encounter this, after you leave this festival, you're feeling all light and filled with heart, and you kind of kind of feel like you want to hug everyone a little bit, right? You're going to go to the gas station, and some guy's going to like flick you off or something, he's this mudra, and, right? And you'd be like, why? Because you're filled with love. You're like, I just wanted to hug, You forgot where you were. And we call this a bhav buster. And bhav is this flow of like happy emotion and devotion. It's love. It's joy. That's what we're feeling in the bhav. And but the bhav busters exist, right? So we take on that impurity now, right? Because now that's in our consciousness. We're like, oh yeah, forgot about that. There's this outside world that we're going to experience. Or work, work is one of those places where we don't always get to choose who we're around. Sometimes we just end up with coworkers who are not very nice, or they live a more toxic lifestyle than we do. How do we interact with them without consuming all of that toxicity and holding on to it, right? Non-hoarding. It's through purification. And on the external, we shower, we take care of ourselves, we clean our clothes, we have good friends that we like to spend time with, right? We come to places like this, right? We're not at the bar, we're at a yoga festival, right? This is a totally different experience. It's a purifying place. And, but it's also in the mind. Our yoga practice, the physical practice, purifies the body, creates strength in the muscles, it allows better blood flow, creates healthier skin, it creates an avenue for the mind to be more at peace, for us to live more in the heart, right? Meditation brings us there, especially for the mind, right? Drops us in, grounds us into this present space. And it allows those little impurities to crop up. And then we can do what we want with them, right? If you sit in meditation, you hear some thoughts. Maybe you hear a bad thought. Maybe you hear something that some, teacher or parent told you a long time ago, and you're like, that wasn't my thought, that was their thought, right? I can let that go, and you can start working towards that. That comes with meditation. That's a purifying process. And it always becomes easier and easier the more you do it. So, saucha. Santosha comes after saucha. This is contentment. Does anyone distinguish between emotion and feeling, those two words? A little bit. Feeling is this kind of flat line that waves just a little bit, right? It's more of a mind state, mindset. Maybe you feel contentment, or maybe you feel depression, right? These things that are much more clingy to our experience. They just linger in the background, and they kind of shape how we view the world. But emotions are kind of more erratic. They're kind of like this, right? I'm happy, I'm having a great time. I'm sad, right? But they're all temporary, right? We know they're temporary. Sometimes because of our feeling, our mindset, if you're depressed and you feel sad, you drop a little lower, you get stuck there. And happy is not quite as high, right? Because you're depressed. You have this baseline that's lower. Contentment brings you up to this line where you're just content with life. There's this satisfaction of what is. If you're experiencing joy or like happiness, you're not lost in it. If you've ever been happy and it just like disappears and you like come out of it and you're like, I have no idea where time was. I don't know what time it is. I just kind of like blinked and my very happy emotion, my day is gone. Did you really enjoy it, or were you needed it so much that you were lost in it, and then when you came out, you go back to your baseline, wherever that is? And sadness is the same way. Or do you feel like stuck in sadness, like you'll never get away from being sad, right? That's the problem with the feeling of not being at contentment. When you're content, you view life from this very stable ground, this flat plane. You see happiness. You experience happiness with observation. You're immersed in it. You more live in the moment with it, knowing that it's temporary. Therefore, it's more cherished, and you have more time to experience it. And when you're sad, you have the exact same experience. Instead of it consuming your world, you have this experience of sadness, and you can be joyful or content with being sad because you know it's this temporary thing. You have a new perspective on it. This last year or so of my life, I've experienced a lot of grief, most personally, but also through other people and them experiencing grief. And grief is a very complicated emotion, but it's kind of also a feeling because it can linger. And grief is one of those things that you can't have if you were just born. It has to be earned. And when you realize that a lot of emotions are like this, where you have to have an experience in time with someone who then is perhaps no longer, to have grief. If you just met someone and then the next day they're no longer here on earth, your grief is like that. You're already over it because you didn't really have anyone, you didn't really know. You can have sympathy, you can be sad, but it's so quick because there's not this earned experience with them. But if you grow up with someone like a parent, right, for decades, you know this person, and then all of a sudden they're no longer there, you have this experience that you've earned. You've earned your grief. And so it's not a sadness that you have grief. It should be a joy that you have it. And you can have all of those emotions all at once and give yourself the permission to have them because you've earned them. And that allows you to integrate those experiences into your life so that they live on through you. Tapas is, we're all familiar with tapas. I know we are. Tapas translates to heat. To heat is also discipline. In our physical practice of asana, we are creating tapas. And we know that very distinctly because I'm assuming we all came to yoga, at least most of us here, through the physical practice. Tapas is that practice of changing the body through our discipline. And when we do that, we create heat. I was listening to Gina's class this morning, and she was like, okay, we're not going to do exactly what I was going to do. We're going to do this other thing because we needed to create heat in the body because it was cold outside this morning. And that's tapas. It's this discipline to be able to do that. Because if you're out there, I don't know if you went to that class, but if you're out there, it's like 40 degrees, and you have the discipline to create heat in your own body, that's amazing. Because you could just be out there suffering and be like, I'll just put a sweater on or something, right? And that does help. But being able to do that with your body through your own will and effort, that's what tapas is. So whenever you're trying to change something in your life, right, you're going to invoke tapas. You can think of it like, I always think of this as like two pieces of sandpaper, heavy grit, right? You feel it, it's rough, you put them together, they barely move, right? And when they do, they create a lot of heat. It's really hard to do, and it creates a lot of heat. But if you keep doing it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, you're going to turn that sandpaper into just paper. It's going to be a lot of heat, but eventually it's paper. And that paper rubbing against itself doesn't create as much heat. In fact, it becomes so smooth that it becomes normal. And it's just like that with tapas. Whenever we're changing anything about us, if you ever had an addiction, this is a great example. I myself smoked for a while when I was a teen. When I changed that habit, I removed that from my life, it was really hard at first. But today, I don't even think about it. I mean, this is the only time I even mention it is as an example. It's not a part of my life. It's not in my consciousness to smoke anymore, right? And if you've ever changed anything like that in your life, then you also know what that feels like. And that's a that one is a hard one, but you've changed little things in your life, whether you wanted them or not, they've changed. And you feel that heat, you feel that difficulty, just like in your asana practice. You feel the difficulty of starting, but then once you're in it, you're like, I can't believe I never did this before. I can't believe I thought this morning I wouldn't be here. Or maybe you don't even have those thoughts anymore because you know that when you go, you're going to enjoy yourself, you're going to feel better. You just do it. And that's the discipline to continue on. And that applies to everything you want to do in life. Everything creates, that you want to change, will create friction, will create heat, and you will be more conscious of it because it's new to you, or it's newer. But as it becomes less new, remember, you become more of the master, you start to inhabit the practices, they become natural, you don't even think about them anymore. That's tapas, that's your discipline. Svadhyaya is self-study. It's the fourth niyama. And self-study is, am I running out of time? I'm not running out of time. Svadhyaya, self-study, or study of scripture, study of text, something of great value, right? It could be even your own study of whatever interests you. Like if you're learning a skill, or if you already have a skill and you want to improve upon it. Self-study is also the observation of the self and what's going on inside. This is entirely done through things like journaling or meditation. You can get it in yoga practice. Whenever you're with yourself, just yourself, not your phone, not another person, and you realize what's going on, and you are learning of yourself, self-study. You are able to then use that knowledge to shift, to change, or to keep. Right? Sometimes we observe a habit that we're like, I didn't know I was doing that. I was making this person joyful or these people joyful every time I saw them, and I just naturally, it's like humor for people. Sometimes humor just comes naturally to people, right? And so you might not even realize how funny you are or like how much joy you bring to the world through that. But through self-study, you start to realize it, right? And it doesn't mean you need to change anything. It just means that you're now more conscious of who you are and what you are in this world and how you interact with people and why people love you so much and maybe how you got to be that way in the first place. And then also scriptural study. Now in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, he doesn't say any particular scripture. He doesn't care. It could be the Bible, Quran, it could be the Vedas. It doesn't matter. But there's a lot of books in our world nowadays because it's so easy to make them. We got AI writing books now in like a day. Okay, like there's billions of books. How do you even choose which ones to read? Some people would say you only need one, and it'll be their religious book, whatever that one is. And that might be true. Okay? But when you think like, okay, there's so many, there's so much, find a way to narrow it down to what it is that's really valuable. And it might be just talking to other people. Maybe it is the Bible or some other religious text. But the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali don't tell you which ones, because it doesn't matter. What matters is that there is one, okay? That there is one, which leads to the final Niyama, which is Ishvara Pranadhana. We might translate this to faith or surrender to a higher power. Having faith that there's something else here, right? Something that's beyond our conception changes how we view the world and how we interact with people and what we decide to do, what we find purpose in, and what is valuable to us as individuals, as humans, as whatever identity you want to take on. It's how we know that what we're doing has some kind of meaning behind it. I like to know that there's no meaning, because if there's no meaning, then that means that anything I do is meaning, right? I choose the meaning. That's very empowering to me. Sometimes we like to think of other things giving us meaning. Whatever it is, that faith, that surrender to that higher power, that gives us the fuel to continue on. And it's secular. It doesn't have to be something like God, okay? It could be anything. When you're a child, what is your world? It's your parents, right? You surrender to them, you have to trust them, right? And for some of us, we know that that's not great, but for others, that was the best thing to do in the world. And you have to do that, because it's gonna be there or not. So Ishvara Pranadhana is very important, because if you just were able to do that, you can find peace in your life. And we know people like this. They're so devout in their religion, their spirituality, that they have peace. They don't need to necessarily go through all of these things to try to feel the whole picture. But that's hard work too. It's not like it just comes to you easy. You have to be fully devoted to it. And so even if you can just have a little bit, right? Whether you're atheist or agnostic, doesn't matter. But now that kind of breaks those are the external, the internal, like observations. For some people, some of us, they might even be a moral or ethnic like guidelines for how we live life. It's pretty solid. It's been around for millennia, thousands and thousands of years. And lots of people have found solace knowing that there's this system that helps us interact with the world, right? It's pretty healthy. Being able to not like steal from people, to know that like I try not to harm people, but also knowing that like I'm going to do some of this stuff too, and being okay with it because they are as well, right? Right now I'm taking a lot of your time, and I appreciate you being here because I'm doing all the talking, right? So I'm giving, but you're also receiving. So you're taking knowledge from me, and I'm receiving joy because I hopefully am helping you in some regard, right? So there's always these two sides, right? When you take, you're not always just stealing. Sometimes you're also giving in a different way. And that's a duality of our experience. I do a talk on the Lila, the divine play, the story that we are living. We're living a story right now. We're living the story of Kula Yoga Festival. But we're also living the story of you, of Jack, right? And in it, we each have a role. But roles are defined not by their self, that they're not in a silo. They're defined by their relationship to the other role. Think like mother-daughter, right? Those two things can't exist without one another, right? They can't. They exist. You are not one if you don't have the other. Whether the other is on this planet or not, you still have that role, and it's defined by the relationship. And that's how all of this kind of comes together here. So moving on here, we got to get to some of the other limbs. Now we're all quite familiar with the third limb of yoga. This is, of course, asana, the physical practice. And in it, Patanjali gives us one sutra. It says, asana is, he says, stiram sukham asanam. Asana, or physical posture, is steadiness and ease. That's it. Nothing else. He doesn't, some people, if you did in your YTT or something, you probably heard, oh, they just meant sitting and this and that. And that's fairly true. So you can sit in meditation, we take care of the body so that we can be at ease, but also steady, right? If you're not fit enough to sit with your spine erect and able to close your eyes and all you can feel is body pain, okay, that's a sign that maybe we should do a little bit more asana, take a little bit more care of the body. But that's a little strict too, because it can be kind of hard to sit cross-legged if you didn't grow up that way. Right. So we bring in some modern kinesiology and anatomy, and we start to realize, okay, maybe they were okay with that because culturally no one had chairs. Right? There were things to sit on, but you would naturally sit cross-legged as adults throughout your entire life in India, right? And then when there's too many people, because there's a lot of people in India, you all stand, right? So those are the two areas. Here in the West, we have chairs. Chairs are very popular. We like chairs. Chairs are actually a newer invention in the world. They used to be hard to make. They cost resources. We'd have benches or stuff, so no back. We've grown up in chairs. Our bodies are a little different. That's neither bad nor good. Right? It just is. And so we need to practice so that we can be comfortable in our bodies, not seated necessarily, just comfortable in our bodies. Because you can sit up against a wall, right? You can stand, you can be in warrior two. You need to be comfortable in it. That's where that ease comes in. And you need to be steady, so you're not wobbling all over the place. That's a practice of not just the body, but the mind and the physiology of what we are. So when we feel uncomfortable in our bodies, that's a sign that we should make a change. Stiram sukham asanam, steadiness and ease in the posture. Now, we all kind of know asana, so I'm not going to sit here and talk about it too much, because we can talk about it if you want, but it leads into the fourth limb, which is pranayama, breath regulation, breath control. Prana is life force. Okay. There's something a little bit more to it than just the air we breathe, the oxygen. Because prana is also it's very much so related to the electric system within our body, the nervous system. When we move our arm, what's actually happening? We might say our muscles are moving it, right? But it's not actually true. It's an electrical signal from the brain that's telling it to move, which are triggering the muscles to move the arm. And in our asana practice, we start very physical, right? We know the physicality of it. I know how to use my warrior too, right? And I could be steady and stable here. But how do I be steady and stable there? It comes from the breath, being in control. If your breath is not in control, then you're going to be wavery a little bit. And it goes a little deeper. So the prana that moves through the body shapes the body. Just like the water in a cup or in another vessel is shaped by the cup, we use the body to shape the breath. And so if you've been practicing yoga for a little while, and we're at a yoga festival, I'm going to assume a little while, at least for most of us, you probably know that the practice is a little bit more than just a physical practice, that it's also a breathing practice. Because when you're in a posture, whether it's a big active posture, or you're moving through vinyasa, or you're in a stable like yin posture or a restorative posture, the breath is always there. And it is shaped by the shape of your body, right? If you're in a twist, your breath is going to be shorter. And so breath control is being comfortable with your breath. And then we have techniques that build upon that, right? We have Kapalabhati breath. And we have our Nadi Shona, equal nostril, breathing. We have our Ujjayi breath. We have a lot of different pranayamas. This is Wim Hof, right? Heavily inspired through pranayama techniques. And these breath practices bring our breath into more control, more ease, and they shape our body. Who here, after you learned to breathe when you were born, right? I mean, I don't know if you were taught. I wasn't. I was just born. I started breathing. Who here has actually been taught to breathe, right? Through our pranayama practice, we've been taught to breathe. But breath is natural, right? And it shapes how we experience life. And you might know this if you breathe short breaths, you breathe with neck muscles and you breathe with just chest muscles, you don't use your diaphragm, you're more likely to have anxiety and to have more spontaneous or maybe reckless thoughts and actions because you don't have this expansion of time between. When you deepen your breath, it actually expands your time, and so that you have more time to experience what is happening. And instead of immediately reacting, you have this ability to act. Right? You observe, experience, and then act, rather than this unconscious reaction. Well, why is it? So there's two things in our body that are regular: our heartbeat and our breath. Time is not something that's real in the sense of a clock, right? That's how we all share time with one another, but that's not what time is. That's just this 3D world, this civilization way that we can coordinate, like, hey, we're gonna have this class at 1 o'clock, right? And we can all kind of gather roughly around that time, right? It makes sense. It helps us to communicate and share our experience together. But real time is much more natural. Even our time is based on our spin of the earth and our spin around the sun, right? It's based on these day and night cycles. It's based on natural things, the moon cycles. And so breath and heartbeat are our personal, individual, sovereign ways of understanding time. When we expand the breath to have deeper breaths, more in control, longer breaths, maybe 12 cycle breaths, really deep breaths, we expand our time. Time becomes big and we experience more in it. Because time is subjective, right? We all know that. It's like you remember having that happy day, you forget about time, it doesn't even exist. Like all of a sudden you're out of it and that day's gone. And you're like, oh, I thought the weekend just started. But no, it's over, right? Oh, I gotta start my work week. It's the longest week of my life or whatever. Like we have long days, we have short days. We explain our days this way. When we're in control of our breath, we start to create more time, right? And in time, we create more stability. So we're not anxious, we're not erratic about our decision making. Heartbeat's there too. That's also why we do the asana practice. We do the physical practice because when we are active, our body's healthy, our heartbeat slows at rest. And when we're active, we're really in it. We want that heartbeat going. It's not just the oxygen delivery, but it's our ability to be in the moment, in the time, so that we can react, especially if you're doing something ridiculous like skiing or snowboarding. I mean, it's fun, right? But it's a little ridiculous. Like, it's not required to live life to do these things, to go biking, to go running, not required, but we enjoy them, and they're good for us. So pranayama, and I'm sure many of us here have our own pranayama practices and most certainly have taken classes. Pranayama leads into the practice of Pratyahara, the fifth limb of yoga. And when I first learned about Pratyahara, I was like, I don't understand this. This is ridiculous. This is a weird one. Withdrawal of the senses, right? Like, okay, what does that mean, right? Like, do I just feel myself? It's a removal of external stimuli so that you can feel what's going on inside of you. Now, if there's anything I've learned from my own personal physical practice of yoga, is that I started with the physical. I got strong. I was doing the vinyasas, the chaturangas, right, the handstands. I was like, so cool. I'm awesome. And then I realized it's a pranayama practice, breath practice. Oh, okay. Now I'm in warrior 2. Now I breathe and I expand and I contract in this space. Pratyahara became this deeper understanding of, now I'm in this space. Now I understand the breath of it. Now I am understanding the energetics of it. Because now I become the pose. Now it's not me doing the pose or performing the pose. Now I am the pose. When I'm in warrior 2, I don't think about what it's like to stand. I think about warrior 2. I'm warrior 2, right? When I transition into a one-legged king pigeon pose, I am that pigeon pose, right? I don't think about what it's like to sit. No, I'm in that pose. It becomes weird to think about leaving that pose because it's my natural state. That's my energetic state, right? Pratyahara is being able to feel that, right? Being able to take that step back from all the external noises, the sounds, the lights, the phone. Phone is like the anti-pratyahara. It pulls you away. It's like, hey, look inside this little rectangle of glowing glass and just give me all of your attention, right? Forget that you even exist. Have you ever had the experience where you just like don't feel your body, you're just kind of like in your head, and you just like feel it kind of like you're a little floating head bobbing around out there? It's very disturbing. It's like ungrounded. You're like, oh, what's going on? Like, I don't feel connected to the world. You forget how the body feels. When you're pratyahara, you know how the body feels. You know if you're hungry or if your body just wants you to eat because it's lunchtime and now is the time to eat, right? Your body's telling you that. You can go, oh, actually, no, I'm not hungry right now. I don't feel that. I actually just feel like my body just wants that routine. Remember the time thing, right? The sun is here, so that's when I normally eat. Okay, but maybe I don't need to eat right now. Maybe my body feels good. Pratyahara tells you that. It tells you that. It tells you when your breath is too short, too long, when there's something going on inside of you. I had this amazing experience. In the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, he goes on. I don't know if you've ever read the book, it gets a little crazier and crazier. It's kind of fun. But in it, he talks about the siddhis, the powers that you get from practicing yoga. And he tells us, Patanjali says, these are distractions. All these like extra abilities you get are distractions from your goal. And you can get lost in them, right? And we hear about this all the time, these gurus who can know things and stuff like that. And maybe you've experienced it too, and you're like, whoa, that's kind of strange. How'd you know that? Or how did you do that, right? Like, who here has stood in tree pose for 2 hours? Have you tried it? It's pretty fun. Your foot will be angry with you not because you can't hold it, but because there's no blood in it. Sorry. So you have this siddhi to overcome your instinct. Well, I had this strange occurrence happen to me. I was with a dear friend and mentor of mine, and I heard him breathing heavy. I was like, okay, that happens, right? But he's sitting. And then I paid more attention because, right, I noticed that. I said, something seems a little off. And then I heard his heartbeat. That's strange to hear a heartbeat. You can hear your own heartbeat, but you need to turn inwards, right? Pratyahara. Turn your senses off of the external world and turn them inwards. Listen to what your heart says. Listen to just the sound of it beating, right? You can hear, just like a doctor does, when they put I think it's called the stethoscope, they put that there and they can listen to your heart, right? Is that right?
You got it.
Okay. Not a doctor. And but you can listen to your heart that way, but you can listen to it without that, right? They use a tool to help, but you can listen to it yourself. You can feel it in there. And you can do the same thing that they're doing, and you can notice if it's off, if there's something wrong in there. And this was such a strange experience for me. I asked them, I was like, are you okay? Because it didn't sound right. It didn't sound like my heart, right? And not being a MD, a money doctor, I had to ask him this question, like, are you okay? And he said, I'm fine, it's gluten or something. He had a heart attack a few months later, It's just strange, and he told me, is like, when you said that, something fell off, and, we're good friends, we're mentors. We talked today, This was 8 years ago. And, that was just such a strange experience to me. But I didn't go out and become that money doctor after having this strange city, because it's not reliable. It's not guaranteed. But the power of your own ability to pay attention to yourself is guaranteed. You can know if you need to go see that doctor, right? To be like, something feels off. I'm going to go have this checked, right? And I have another friend, a yogi. He got into yoga just a few years ago, but he got really deep into it. He's retired, so he's got all the time in the world. And he did the same thing. I told him this same story, and he said he was in meditation, and he felt something weird in his heart. He went to the doctor, and they we wouldn't have even known of this. There's no way, there's no sign that they would even know to test his heart, but he needed to have some surgery done. He had a blockage. And so he did that just a few months ago. He's recovered now. Maybe it was half a year ago. That's amazing, right? Pay attention to your body. Pratyahara will bring you so in touch with who you are that you will know when there's something wrong. It's not to say that you'll fix it, right? Don't get distracted by the cities. We still are human. We rely on one another's skill sets and knowledge and experience, so we connect with people. But you can know when it's time. You can be the one that's in power of that practice. Now, as you withdraw your senses and you start to really pay attention to yourself, a thing that begins to naturally occur is you begin to meditate, right? Not necessarily I'm sure many of us here have all sat in meditation. We've been guided through meditation. But there's this experience of that meditation that just naturally comes over. We just pause for a moment, wherever we are, with or without training, and we're in it. The process of meditation, or the last 3 limbs of the 8 limbs of yoga, is called Samyana. Samyana is the culmination of this experience of Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. And there's no way to talk about them really in isolation, because they're very interconnected. And they'll be translated into things like focus, concentration, meditation, absorption. I like to think of them in a much more, let's say, logical way, because Samadhi, if you've ever heard of it, you familiar with Samadhi? Maybe you've seen the documentary on Samadhi. Super good. In it, they're we're kind of conflicted about talking about Samadhi because you can't have Samadhi. It's this experience that is beyond the I. When you wake up from deep sleep and you say, I slept well, but then I ask you, where were you? You're like, I was in my bed, right? But if you slept well, then do you have any recollection of being in bed? No, because you slept well. Where were you? Right? You come back from that experience and you say, I slept well. But in the moment, you can't say I, right? And deep sleep is the closest we can know to that oneness of Samadhi absorption. So, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Dharana, often translated as focus, right? Right now you're focused on my words, and I cherish that. I'm focused on sharing this knowledge with you. There's this one-in-one, right? So there's the subject and there's the object, or the subject and then the object of the focus. But then there's also this world all around us, right? There's people coming in, there's noises over here, there's this over that, there's a light here. There's this world around us. So there's these 3 things in our focus, in that state of dharana. There's us, the self, there's object of focus, and then there's the world, right? We kind of tune it out, but it's kind of like this blob, this amorphous, just experience, right? Everything's just kind of there. But because we're focused, we have this ability to create this dynamic. Well, that's from dharana. To dhyana, we actually negate the world, and it becomes singular focus of the object. Candlelight is probably one of the best uses for this. There's a practice called tradaka. You light a candle, you just put it at a comfortable distance, maybe a few feet away from you, where you're not like craning your neck or something. Make sure you're comfortable, right? Maybe you're in a chair or something. Be comfortable. Remember, stiram sukhamasana, steadiness and ease. Focus on the candle flame. You watch it flicker, and you become absorbed in it. And then all of a sudden, there will be a moment where the world all around you, remember this amorphous blob, this experience of sound and light and all this other stuff that's going on, disappears. And it's just you and the candle flame. And then you might even see that like light, right, of the reflection in your eye, of the water in your eye, where that light connects to you. You start to become one with that candlelight, with that flame, that focus, that object. Now, Samadhi is the experience of absorption. So you go from that two state to a single state of self. The candlelight is no longer separate from you. You are the candlelight. But you don't even identify it as candlelight. You can't, because there's this experience of oneness, absorption. And Samadhi has been kind of talked about as like this esoteric experience. It's really hard to obtain. It's like self-enlightenment or realization, right? It's this esoteric thing. It's just kind of out of reach, right? But there's this great teacher, Sri Nisargadatta, and he's no longer with us, but he's recent to this world. I believe he passed in the 70s, not too long ago. He was this great teacher, and he lived a life just like us. He had a job, he had a family, all this stuff. And then, in his older age, he went, I'm going to go study yoga and become, a yogi. He was very good at it. Very, very good at it. He did reach a state of enlightenment, and he was very casual about it. He says, Samadhi is easy. It comes just like that, right? And we all know this, because remember that happy moment where time just disappeared? You don't even remember it. You were so absorbed in the moment, you just don't even, you refer to it as something you did. But when you come out of it, so when you're in it, you're absorbed in it. When you come out of it, you have to refer back to it, but you can't actually be in it. But Samadhi, it goes really deep. Like there's like 10 layers of Samadhi. So we're not even going to get into all that, because it's just, to me, it's heady. It's like not really valuable to us. But we all know flow state. We hear about that. It's a psychological term. Flow state is that experience where you're so in it that it's just, everything just flows. If you have a craft or like a passion or something, you know exactly what that is. You go skiing, whatever it is, you know what it is to be in flow state. You've entered it. Doesn't mean you're always in it when you're doing those things, but you've entered it, where you're just, everything just works. You're so in flow. That's a very similar state to Samadhi. It's a very similar state to this whole Samyana practice. And we all know that. We all know what that feels like. And so when everyone tells you it's like esoteric, it's like out of reach, just be like, okay, sure, for you. Because that's their belief system, right? Their identity is then to obtain that. But we don't even want to focus on it, because it's not really the goal. The 8 limbs of yoga are here to bring us into a holistic wellness of life. So we have higher quality of life. We treat the world with respect, and our people, our friends, our family, we can cherish them, and we can take care of ourselves within that, whatever our relationship to them is. Because remember, it's not about them, and it's not about you. It's about the experience, the story. And you are the author of your own story. If you want to become enlightened, what are you doing here? Go be in a cave and sit. Do nothing else. You become enlightened, or you will die, right? And then you'll understand some other mystery of our life. We can all do that, but we all choose to be part of this world. We're all choosing to be here. So be invested in it. That's really what I've learned. This is the system of being invested in it without the attachment to it. A parigraha was non-hoarding, if you remember, from the Yamas. I also like to think of it as non-attachment. Attachment being this pole. I like to think of attachment as a barb, or like a harpoon, right? The thing, it's a little gruesome. It goes in really easy, but it's hooked on the other end. So when you try to pull it out, it gets stuck, right? An attachment is like that. It's very easy for it to go in. You don't even realize it until you try to pull away from it. And sometimes, most often, what happens with attachments is you either create a very unhealthy bond with that attachment. It could be with a person or with a thing. When it gets ripped out, because it inevitably will, all things change, right? Life is a state of impermanence. That when it rips out, it's going to be very painful because your identity was wrapped up in it. You were so attached to it that you had no idea how integrated it was into your experience. The 8 limbs of yoga will teach us that we shouldn't practice detachment, but we shouldn't practice attachment either. It's a non-attachment practice. When you interact with any of these limbs, if you want to focus on one to work on, something that you're changing in your life, you're going to be a little connected to it, right? You're going to have to, because we all connect. Right now we're connected. But when we part, we're not going to feel like we're ripping apart. We're going to appreciate our time together, I hope. Right? We should think of it as a coupling. There's a connection. We bring that connection together. And when the connection's done, there's this mutual agreement to decouple, right? That goes into the quantum mechanics of what we're experiencing, which is all that we're experiencing. We're experiencing energy, life, love, these very abstract things in a very physical way. Nisargadatta also stated that we are not born into a body. We're born into time. Because before, we had no time. We had no way of understanding our story. And so we're born into time. We all have roughly what we would call the same amount of time, but we have control over that. Remember the Pranayama practice. If you have deep breath, you will have more time. You really will. It's a really strange experience to go, yeah, your days are flying by, your years are flying by, but not mine. I feel like I'm here forever because my breath, my practice gives me the space to realize how much time there really is in the world. And I want you to have that too. I want you to not think like you just blinked and your entire life went by and you never made the choices that you wanted to make. You never did the things you wanted to do for one reason or another. You know, to not have fear that you won't live your life so much so that you will not live your life because you have fear of living your life. That the 8 limbs of yoga can connect you to yourself and to the world around you. Do you have any questions? I need water, so.
Can you spell out the author that you're referring to?
Patanjali. Patanjali is spelled Patanjali. You will, as soon as you search it, you'll find a myriad of resources. What's your question?
Do you think that brahmacharya do you think that we just modernized it? Or do you think that we just misunderstood it?
So the question was, have we modernized or misunderstood brahmacharya? Yeah. Yeah, I think that, so one thing. Absolutely. So, celibacy being the practice of not having sex, right? I actually think that is conservation of energy, to reserve that, right? But I think there's a lot of value in understanding what that means. So I don't think it means to never have, right? Or to only have it with the marriage or the vow, like the one person or something. But to understand that it's an act of some kind of level of sacredness, right? It takes energy from us. It's a practice, not just so like there's a degree of degeneracy with excess, but there's the degree of the restriction of reproducing. But then there's also the part where it's an act of bonding for us as humans. But if you bond with like everyone that you meet, right, you're throwing your energy all over the place, you're screwing with your own conservation of energy. You're screwing with that ability to bond with future people. And so there's a lot of value in conserving that energy, being moderate with how you express and share that part of your life. And when you do that, it becomes more sacred when you are sharing it, right? And I think that goes hand in hand with the translation of walking with Brahma. Because when you walk with God, you're creating something sacred. It's a very rare, special thing to share, that walk with Brahma.
Do you think that that's what Patanjali meant in the beginning, was all of that, or do you think we created it now and it evolved it to kind of?
I think when it was originally created, it was a vow to remain devout to your guru. I think that's the actual original. When I read Swami Vivekananda's commentary on it, he kind of leans into that a lot more than the whole sexual thing. I think that the whole bastardization of what Tantra is in yoga is what led it to be so focused on sex. And then we just, as a kind of, because we are a rather sexualized culture here in America, that's what we hammered home on. And so there's just so much emphasis on it that we kind of, we tunnel visioned it. And so I do think it had more to do with being devout to your teacher. Now, if you devout yourself to a guru, without getting into all the cultural parts of how that would work, they would become celibate in our understanding of it. They'd vow not to have sex. And that usually had to do something more along the lines of population and the complications of that. If you're going to devout yourself to God, we even see this in the Catholic faith and lots of religions, they say you can't take a wife, you're married to the practice, or whatever it is, right? So there's this part in religion that does that. I don't think it was focused on sex, it just became that way, similar to how the word celibate did. Because we didn't use it for anything else. There's words like that where we use some words in the English language. They only really say one thing, but their meaning is more vague than that. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now, but I know they're there. Every now and then I say a phrase, and I'm like, oh, that's the only time I'd ever say that.
Yeah, it always seems to be the source of, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody always likes to talk about it because it always seems to be the most confusing.
Yeah. One, people get weird about it too. It's kind of a weird subject to talk about in person, but I hope you all feel comfortable knowing that we're all human. We almost all have sex. We almost all are adults, and we do things in this world that are of adult nature. So thank you for your question and our understanding that this is the whole human experience, So, and we're not, none of you are monks. You wouldn't be listening to me if you were, because I'm not either. I'm a part of this world. I do things in this world, and I live life as well. I have vices, and I have, I'm both, I work to be more pure. I work to be a very good yogi. I want to have a good life. I want to enjoy it. I want to connect with good people. I want to be filled with love and joy. But I understand, I live in the world too. If I really wanted enlightenment, I too would be in a cave. You wouldn't know me. We wouldn't interact. But it's a joy that I get to do so. Is there any other questions before we kind of wrap this all up? Wonderful. So I do have some resources for you. I actually have a book on the 8 limbs of yoga, but I did write it a while ago. It's on Amazon. You could just search my name. But I do a lot of these talks. I actually host a discussion group once a month back home in Grand Junction, Colorado. So it might be a little out of reach for us here. But we talk about yoga, the 8 limbs, all these things, and try to just be better people. You can find me in my booth for the next 15 minutes before the closing ceremony begins. But I really appreciate all of you, because it's not me here talking. I already live this stuff. I talk about it, I write about it on my website. I already do all this stuff. What's really valuable to me is that you're all here. You want to know it too. And your attention, you may not realize, is one of the most valuable things to me as a being, and I really appreciate that. So if you have anything you want to say afterwards, you want to come talk or something, please feel welcome to. It'd be your turn to talk, and I'd love to hear what you have to say, whether it's commentary or questions or any of that. So thank you. Let's all Om together to close. Take a cleansing breath to the top. Let that go. Comfortable inhale for Om. Namaste. Thank you.